Have you ever stood in the mirror and felt time staring back at you, mocking what used to be, whispering what might never return? My friend, God sent me to tell you something today. The same God who restored Sarah's laughter and renewed Caleb's strength has not forgotten how to rejuvenate you. Sometimes, He doesn't just add years to your life, He adds left to your years. You've been walking heavy, carrying the weight of yesterday's reflection, but I hear the Lord saying, "Behold, I make all things new." What if I told you looking 25 years younger isn't about vanity, but divine vitality? That it's a spiritual renewal manifesting in your body. And what I'm about to reveal to you about this could shift your perspective forever. But you must watch this video until the very end. Don't skip. Let us begin, not with a whisper, but with a thunderclap of realization you are here, alive, conscious, breathing and chosen. Not by coincidence. Not by accident, but by a rhythm older than the stars themselves. There is something in you that has been selected for renewal, a divine impulse that whispers, "Rise up, for I have chosen you for this wonderful opportunity to look 25 years younger." But what does that truly mean? Surely not the shallow glimmer of skin or the chase of youth for its own sake. This is something far deeper, a remembrance that life is not measured in the years you've spent, but in the aliveness still available within you. You see, we have been conditioned to think of time as a thief. Every birthday, every wrinkle, every gray strand seems to whisper you are fading. But the truth is quite the opposite. Time does not steal, it reveals. It peels away the illusions of permanence until all that remains is the essence of being. And that essence, your soul, your spirit, is ageless. The universe, or God if you prefer, is forever new, forever unfolding, forever becoming. And so are you. The invitation is not to go backward in years, but to awaken to the timeless vitality that has always been your inheritance. Think of the oak tree. It looks ancient, weathered, immovable. But within it, every cell is humming with renewal. Beneath its bark, sap rises, pushing life upward again and again, as it has for centuries. The outer form might seem still, but inside there is an endless youthfulness at work. In much the same way, the spirit in you, when aligned with the divine, refuses to age. It may appear quieter with time, but it is never weaker. You were chosen because you have reached a point where you can understand that looking younger is not a cosmetic act. It is a spiritual condition. It is what happens when your inner and outer worlds are reconciled, when resistance gives way to flow. So I ask you, when did you stop flowing? When did you begin to believe that vitality was something you had to chase, rather than something you already were? Renewal begins the moment you stop fighting time and start dancing with it. Because God does not make mistakes. If you are hearing this message, it means the season of decline has expired. The season of divine rejuvenation has begun. The very cells of your being are listening right now. They are waiting for the permission that only you can give. To live again, to expand. To glow with the unforced rhythm of divine youth. And here's the secret: being chosen doesn't mean better than anyone else. It means being available. The river of renewal flows for everyone. But few have the courage to step into it consciously. To be chosen is to respond, to say, "Yes, I will remember who I am beneath the years. Beneath the story." It is not about vanity. It's about visibility. God wants His glory reflected through a vessel alive with purpose, with radiance, with vitality. That is why you are being called now, to show what divine rejuvenation looks like when it takes human form. Every time you speak love instead of fear, you reclaim a year of your life. Every time you forgive, a wrinkle of resentment disappears from your spirit. Every time you wake up grateful instead of bitter, your energy realigns with eternity. This is how the chosen lit. This is how time bows before consciousness. Looking younger, then, is not magic, it is awareness made visible. And now that you have heard this truth, the question is not whether you are chosen. The question is whether you are chose to believe it. Because the moment you do, the years begin to obey you. When we talk about renewal, it's easy to think it's something brand new. A miracle that arrives out of nowhere. A sudden intervention that changes everything. But the truth is, renewal is an ancient rhythm, a divine pattern woven into the very fabric of existence. Every dawn is proof of it. Every spring that follows winter whispers it. The body forgets but the spirit remembers. Everything that fades is preparing to return in another form. This is not a new story, it is the oldest story there is. The Bible, that collection of poetic echoes and sacred metaphors, is full of this pattern. Sarah laughed when God told her she would bear a child in her old age. Laughed, because how could something so unreasonable, so beyond biology, possibly be true? Yet life has always moved beyond the limits of logic. It is not bound by our calculations. Sarah's laughter wasn't mockery, it was the joy of awakening to the absurd generosity of existence. That same power that renewed her is still moving through the world, still whispering to us. What you think is finished. I can begin again. Then there was Caleb, who stood at 85 and declared, I am as strong now as I was 40 years ago. What gives a man the audacity to say such a thing? Not denial, not ego, it was revelation. He had tapped into the deeper current beneath time, the one that never grows old. You see, we age when we forget who we are. We wither when we disconnect from the source. But those who stay in communion with the eternal are sustained by it. Their bodies may change, but their vitality remains anchored in something that time cannot erode. Even the psalmist said, "He renews your youth like the eagle." Think about that image for a moment. The eagle doesn't resist aging, it renews through surrender. It sheds old feathers so new ones can grow. It flies higher when the air gets thinner. Renewal is not resistance, it's release. The secret is not to cling, but to trust. The divine process of renewal asks you to let go of what has served its purpose so that something lighter, freer, and more radiant can emerge. We tend to think of spiritual truths as abstract, but this one is profoundly practical. Look around, nature never holds on to decay. The tree doesn't mourn its leaves, it lets them fall. The river doesn't hoard water, it flows. The seed doesn't resist breaking open, it welcomes the cracking, because only then can new life emerge. You and I, though, we tend to resist this process. We grip tightly to the past, to identities and stories that have expired. And that tension is what ages us, not the passage of time, but the refusal to flow with it. What if looking younger wasn't about reversing time, but realigning with the rhythm of renewal that everything in creation obeys? The plants, the stars, the tides, they all submit to the great pulse of letting go and beginning again. Renewal happens when we stop fighting that pulse and start dancing with it. When you accept that God, or the great mystery, the divine intelligence, whatever name you choose, has built resurrection into the very DNA of life, you stop doubting your ability to be made new. You realize you're not asking for a miracle, you are the miracle. This is what the stories of Sarah, Caleb, and the eagle teach us. They are not fairy tales from long ago. They are metaphors of your own potential. You are designed to rejuvenate, to be reborn again and again, not just spiritually, but mentally, emotionally, even physically. When your mind agrees with heaven's rhythm, your body follows suit. When you start believing that renewal is your nature, not your exception, you begin to carry it in your eyes, your voice, your presence. And maybe that's why you're hearing this message right now. Because the same Spirit that spoke to them is speaking to you. It's not promising you a fountain of youth. It's inviting you into a river of remembrance. The kind that washes away the illusion of aging and reveals the ageless life flowing underneath. So let the stories remind you. The God of renewal is not behind you or ahead of you. That Spirit is in you, waiting to laugh again, to soar again, to declare again, I am as strong now as I have ever been. And once you realize that, you understand renewal isn't coming. It's already here. There comes a moment in every life when we begin to believe more in the story of decline than in the story of renewal. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts subtly. A sigh when you climb the stairs, a glance in the mirror that feels less friendly. The slow adoption of phrases like, I'm getting old. And yet, the most remarkable thing is this: it isn't the body that grows old first. It's the mind that decides it must. You see, aging begins in consciousness long before it reaches the skin. The body follows the instructions of the inner world. Change the mind, and you change the message being whispered to every cell of your being. We have inherited a strange mythology about time. We treat it like a tyrant, a constant threat looming over us, counting down the minutes until everything fades. But time itself is innocent, it has no agenda, it simply moves like the tide, carrying us from one expression of life to another. It's only when we resist its flow, when we fight the natural unfolding of existence, that we begin to feel its weight. To think young, to live young, is not to deny time, it is to move in harmony with it. Our thoughts are more powerful than we imagine. Every belief is a kind of prophecy, quietly shaping the body to match its expectation. When we wake up thinking, I'm too old for this, our cells listen. When we declare, my best years are behind me, the body obeys. But the reverse is just as true. When we think thoughts of vitality, when we see ourselves as ageless expressions of divine energy, our biology reorganizes itself to reflect that vision. Modern science calls it neuroplasticity or epigenetics, ancient wisdom calls it faith. Either way, it means the same thing. What you believe about yourself is what your body becomes. The process begins with what metanoia, a shift of mind, a transformation of perception. It is not about pretending to be young again. It's about rediscovering the freshness of awareness that youth naturally carries. Have you noticed that children don't think about being young? They are simply alive. Their energy comes from presence, not years. They are not weighed down by memories of who they were or fears of who they might become. They are immersed in the miracle of now. To think young then, is to live as they do, alert, curious, unguarded, open to wonder. When Jesus said, unless you become like little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven, perhaps he wasn't speaking about innocence in the moral sense, but in the perceptual sense. To enter the kingdom, the realm of renewal, of timeless vitality, you must return to that inner freedom, that unburdened state of consciousness. Heaven, you see, isn't somewhere you go when you die. It's a dimension of awareness you can enter while you live. And in that state, age becomes irrelevant. Because the spirit doesn't age, it expands. Thinking young is not a denial of the years you've lived. It's a celebration of their wisdom without inheriting their weariness. It's learning to carry memory lightly. Like a musician carries the notes of a song. Enough to play, but never so much that it weighs him down. It's realizing that every morning is a rehearsal for resurrection. That you can begin again. Today, this hour, this breath. There is a simple practice that begins the shift. When you look in the mirror, instead of measuring change, recognize life. Look not for the lines of time, but for the light that remains behind your eyes. Speak to yourself as you would to someone you love. You are still becoming. Do this often enough, and you'll start to notice that time bends differently around you. You'll see that youth is not something lost and found. It's something remembered and embodied. The mind is the garden, the body is the soil. Whatever seeds of thought you plant will take root and grow into the visible expression of your belief. So plant vitality. Plant renewal, plant joy. Then water it with gratitude, and watch as your reflection begins to change. Not because you forced it, but because you remembered who you are. For the truth is simple: when you change your mind about aging, your body listens and obeys. The greatest misunderstanding we hold is that the body and spirit are separate. Two distinct things loosely connected by circumstance. But they are not separate at all. They are one motion expressed in different textures. The spirit breathes life into the body, and the body gives form to the spirit. To neglect one is to weaken the other. To honor both is to awaken the rhythm of renewal that keeps us truly alive. The journey of youthfulness is not about cosmetics or vanity, it's about alignment. When the spirit, soul, and body move together, you don't have to chase vitality, it overflows naturally. Think of yourself as a symphony. The spirit is the composer, the soul is the instrument, and the body is the sound. When one goes out of tune, the entire song feels dissonant. You can't force harmony, you must listen for it. Renewal happens when the inner and outer worlds begin to sing in the same key again. That's what true health is. Not a perfect physique, but a perfect alignment between what you believe, what you feel, and what you embody. It starts with the spirit, the invisible center. The spirit thrives on stillness and presence, not noise and striving. When you sit quietly and breathe deeply, not to escape the world but to feel it fully, something begins to shift. You remember that you are not the thoughts racing through your head, nor the labels the world has given you. You are awareness itself, unchanging, eternal, untouched by time. That realization is the root of renewal. Because when you know who you are beyond form, you stop clinging to form for validation. You treat your body not as a project to fix, but as a vessel to celebrate. The soul, meanwhile, is the bridge, the emotional atmosphere through which the spirit expresses itself. It thrives in peace, gratitude, and joy, and it withers under anxiety, regret, and resentment. You can feed your body the finest foods, but if your soul is malnourished by bitterness, your vitality will still fade. Emotional health is spiritual nutrition. Forgiveness, laughter, and awe are as essential as water and rest. They lighten the soul, and when the soul lightens, the body responds. The eyes brighten, the skin softens. The energy field expands, you become luminous. Not because of what you've done, but because of what you've released. Then there is the body itself, the sacred vessel of your becoming. It is not your enemy, it is your ally. It listens to every thought, every motion, every word you speak about yourself. The body loves ritual, rhythm, and reverence. When you rest deeply, it repairs. When you move freely, it rejoices. When you fast or hydrate, it resets. When you breathe with intention, it remembers that life is meant to flow, not stagnate. The body is a teacher, not a slave. It constantly communicates your state of alignment. Fatigue, tension, aches, these are not punishments but invitations to return to balance. When spirit, soul, and body align, something extraordinary happens. Time loses its grip. You stop measuring your life in years and stop measuring it in prezels. You realize that vitality is not stored in the muscles, but in the quality of your awareness. The body that ages is just the visible surface of an invisible current that never stops renewing itself. You don't fight decay. You outgrow it. You let the higher rhythm of life move through you unhindered. If you've ever seen someone radiant for no apparent reason, you've witnessed alignment. They may not have youth from the biological sense, but they possess something far more powerful: coherence. Their thoughts, emotions, and actions are in agreement. Their being is a single yes to life, and that yes radiates outward as beauty, vitality, magnetism. So perhaps the real secret of looking younger is not in resisting time, but in remembering how to be whole. Not fixing the body but tuning the instrument. Not seeking life, but aligning with the life that is already seeking you. Because the moment your spirit, soul, and body fall back into harmony, you stop aging, and you start glowing. There's a kind of aging that has nothing to do with time at all. You can see it in the eyes of those who have carried too much for too long. People bent under the invisible weight of years made heavy by worry, resentment. Life by itself is light. It is movement, vibration, joy. What makes it heavy is resistance. The moments we clench against what has already happened, or what we fear might come. The years are not what age us. The weight we attach to them does. The secret to renewal lies in releasing that weight, in trading the spirit of heaviness for what the scriptures once called the oil of joy. Joy, you see, is not a mood or a passing pleasure. It is the natural fragrance of the soul when it has been set free from its own resistance. It's not the laughter that follows a joke. It's the laughter that rises when you realize you've survived, when you recognize that all along, you were never as trapped as you thought. When joy returns, the body follows, the eyes shine again, the posture lifts, the heart opens. Joy is not cosmetic, it is cellular. It rewrites the way the body holds time. Most of us, though, have been trained to hold on. We hold grudges like heirlooms, nurse old wounds like sacred possessions, replay moments that can never be rewritten. And each time we do, we relive the tension of that memory as if it's happening now. The body doesn't know the difference between event and the memory of an event. It feels both as real, both as present. So when we hold bitterness, we age by repetition. Every act of forgiveness, then, is not for the other person. It's a declaration of freedom for your own cells. It's how you tell your body, you can let this go now. The war is over. The oil of joy is what replaces that heaviness. But to receive it, you must be willing to loosen your grip on pain. Joy and sorrow are not enemies, they are different notes of the same song. True joy doesn't deny pain, it redeems it. It takes the broken parts of your story and turns them into rhythm. It's the laughter of Sarah when she realized that what she thought was impossible had already begun. It's the strength of Caleb who, even at 85, refused to see himself as diminished. Their joy wasn't naïve, it was prophetic. It saw beyond the visible and felt the pulse of renewal underneath. When you learn to live that way, to smile not because everything is perfect, but because you are finally at peace with imperfection, something inside of you changes shape. You begin to carry light differently. The lines on your face become maps of wisdom, not scars of defeat. The body becomes a temple again, not a burden. Even your presence begins to heal others, simply because joy is contagious. It reminds everyone who encounters it that life is still worth celebrating. Joy is also practical. It can be cultivated through gratitude, through laughter, through the simple act of noticing beauty in places you once overlooked. When you step outside and feel the sun on your face, don't rush past that moment, absorb it. Let it teach you how alive you still are. When you laugh, laugh deeply. When you forgive, forgive completely. When you love, love without keeping score. Every act of release oils the machinery of the soul, making life glide again where it once ground to a halt. There is no elixir more potent than joy. It oxygenates the blood, relaxes the muscles, quiets the mind, and reminds the heart of its own infinite capacity. When you choose joy, you are not ignoring reality. You are aligning with a deeper one. The same divine force that renews the eagle's youth flows through laughter, gratitude, and awe. You can feel it even now, a quiet stirring in the chest. An invitation to breathe again, to smile without a reason, to live without the armor. The truth is, every moment of renewal requires your participation. The divine can pour itself endlessly into you, but unless you are open, unless you allow yourself to receive, it cannot take root. This is what the laying on of hands symbolized long before religion formalized it, not a hierarchy of power, but a mutual recognition of light. It was a reminder that energy flows where attention goes, that healing travels through connection. When two or more align in intention, something shifts, not metaphorically but energetically, and this shift leaves a visible trace: eyes that gleam, a voice that vibrates with peace, a body that radiates calm. You don't have to wait for a miracle worker to touch you. You can become one. Every time you choose love over judgment, patience over panic, presence over distraction, you lay invisible hands upon the world. You create small ripples of wholeness that return to you magnified. In this way, the cycle of touch and testimony continues. Healing yourself heals others, and healing others heals you. It's a divine feedback loop, endlessly renewing, endlessly alive. And perhaps that is what the Creator intended all along. And we would become living proof of renewal, walking evidence of a love that transcends decay. To be a testimony is not to boast of what happened to you. It is to carry the vibration of what is still happening through you. People sense it before you speak. They see it in your calmness, hear it in your laughter, feel it in your silence. You become a living sanctuary, a reminder that divine energy is not something distant but something embodied, tangible, and available now. So yes, you can tell your story of healing. You can bear witness to the strength that returned, the peace that replaced fear, the radiance that emerged from surrender. But remember this: the most powerful testimony is not in the telling, it's in the being. Because the moment you embody renewal, you don't just talk about light, you become it. At some point, all the reflection, the inner stillness, the forgiveness, and the daily practices converge into one profound realization. You are not waiting for renewal to come. You are renewal in motion. The spirit that restores, heals, and rejuvenates doesn't descend from somewhere above. It arises from within, like a spring breaking through the soil after a long winter. It has always been there, buried under layers of distraction and self-doubt. And now, in this moment of awakening, it begins to flow freely again. You see, life is not interested in your hesitation. It only asks for your willingness. The moment you stop arguing with your own becoming, the transformation accelerates. All the teachings, the stories, the disciplines, they've been preparing you for this surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of alignment. When you finally let go of trying to control how renewal appears, you discover that it was never about doing more, but about allowing more. The divine does not shout. It whispers, and it moves swiftly through those who are open. This is the moment of prophetic charge. The invitation to embody everything you've learned so far. You have traded heaviness for joy, replaced fear with trust, built sacred habits, and reconciled spirit, soul, and body. Now you are called to walk as someone renewed. Not just for your own sake but for the sake of the world. Because the world doesn't change through sermons or systems, it changes through presence. One person fully alive, fully radiant, fully at peace, can alter the atmosphere of an entire room. That's what it means to be chosen. And here's the mystery: when you embody this renewal, you no longer need to speak about looking younger. The glow does it for you. People will ask, "What's different about you?" And you won't be able to explain it with logic. Because it's not a product of effort. It's the overflow of alignment. When the inner river flows unobstructed, it shows in the outer world. In your eyes, in your movement, in the way you listen, in the peace that surrounds you like an invisible fragrance. We often think prophecy is about predicting the future, but true prophecy is about revealing the eternal. It's about speaking from the timeless space within you. The part untouched by years, unharmed by disappointment, unbound by gravity. That's the voice that says, "Behold, I make all things new." It's not a promise for later, it's an announcement happening now. Renewal isn't a future event. It's the present revelation of divine energy remembering itself through you. The charge, is simple but immense. Live as if you believe it. Speak life. Move, smile often. Refuse to let cynicism claim your spirit. When the temptation arises to doubt your worth, remember that the same breath that animates galaxies is moving through your lungs at this very moment. That is not a metaphor, it is reality. You are the evidence of God's creativity, the embodiment of what it looks like when eternity expresses itself in time. To doubt your radiance is to doubt the source that made you. And yet, as you step into this awareness, the world will test it. Life will still have its storms, its shadows, its moments of uncertainty. But renewal is not about avoiding storms. It's about remembering who you are within them. When you know yourself as light, darkness becomes texture, not threat. When you know yourself as eternal, time becomes play, not pressure. This is the shift, the great unveiling, the new way of being human. So this is the moment to lean in. To accept the calling that has followed you through every season of your life. You have not been chosen for vanity, but for visibility. To become a living demonstration that divine vitality is real. To show that peace, joy, and beauty are not the rewards of youth, but the results of awakening. And the more you live in that awareness, the more the world begins to mirror it back. Because in the end, renewal is contagious. One awakened soul becomes a spark that lights others, until whole generations begin to remember that life was never meant to be endured. It was meant to be lived. And what I'm about to reveal to you about this could shift your perspective forever. But you must watch this video until the very end, don't skip. And when that happens, when you truly trade the weight of years for the oil of joy, you don't just look younger, you become timeless. Renewal, for all its mystery and wonder, does not happen by accident. It is not something that descends upon us uninvited. It requires participation, a kind of gentle cooperation with the rhythms of life. We like to imagine that great change arrives in thunderclaps and revelations, but most transformation happens quietly. Through the small choices we repeat each day. The divine doesn't need grand gestures, it needs consistency. A tree doesn't strive to grow. It simply abides in the laws of sunlight, water, and time. In the same way, our youthfulness, our vitality, returns when we establish the right conditions for it to flourish. We often overlook the sacredness of habit. We call them routines, but in truth, they are rituals. Patterns through which our spirit speaks to our body and our body responds to our soul. The smallest actions, when infused with awareness, become portals of renewal. A morning breath of gratitude can shift the trajectory of an entire day. A walk taken not to burn calories but to feel the pulse of life beneath your feet can realign your entire being. It's not what you do that matters most. It's the consciousness with which you do it. Imagine beginning each morning not with urgency but with reverence. Before the world's noise rushes in, you take a few quiet moments to remember who you are. Not a collection of responsibilities, not a checklist of tasks, but an expression of the infinite. You breathe deeply, perhaps read a few words of wisdom, or simply sit and let the silence hold you. That stillness is not wasted time, it is calibration. It tells your mind that peace is your baseline and everything else must align to it. This too is a kind of an aging practice, not for the skin, but for the spirit. Then there are the habits that bring the body into harmony with this awareness. Movement, not as punishment but as worship. The body is designed to move, to express, to stretch and contract like the tide. When you walk or dance or stretch, you are not merely exercising muscles. You are communicating joy to every cell. The body responds with energy because it recognizes that motion is life. The same applies to rest. True rest is not merely the absence of activity but the presence of trust. When you sleep deeply or take moments of stillness, you are saying to the universe, I surrender the illusion of control. And in that surrender the body heals itself. Fasting, too, is one of these covenant habits, not as a rigid rule but as an act of remembrance. When you pause the constant intake of food, of information, of stimulation, you allow your inner systems to reset, the mind clears, the body purifies, and the spirit speaks more clearly. There is a wisdom that only silence and emptiness can reveal. In that space, you begin to see that the same energy that renews forests and oceans is at work renewing you. And perhaps the most overlooked of all these practices is community. Renewal thrives in connection. Just as embers grow brighter when gathered together, our spirits are rekindled in the company of others who remind us of our light. A conversation shared in authenticity, a shared laugh, a moment of prayer. These are not trivial. They are the scaffolding that holds the temple of renewal in place. We are not meant to journey alone. When you align your habits with others who live awake, your renewal becomes exponential. Each of these small acts, morning reflection, movement, fasting, rest, gratitude, connection, becomes a hinge upon which the great door of transformation swings open. There is nothing glamorous about them, nothing grandiose, yet their quiet power is immeasurable. Because it is through them that eternity touches time. The divine moves not through chaos, but through order disguised as simplicity. So, if you wish to look and feel younger, do not chase the fleeting miracles. Practice the sacred mundane. Turn your daily rhythms into prayers, your routines into rituals, your habits into harmony. Over time, you'll notice that your reflection begins to match your awareness. Lighter, calmer, more luminous. Because the truth is this: it's not the years that age you, but the absence of rhythm. And when you return to rhythm, you return to life. Every spiritual truth eventually demands to be embodied. It is not enough to think of renewal, or even to believe in it. You must live it. There comes a point when words must become flesh, when understanding must take form through experience. You see, the body remembers things the mind has long forgotten. It carries stories, energies, and impressions from years of joy and pain alike. But the body is also the stage where divine transformation becomes visible. It is through this vessel that we express our alignment with spirit. To look younger, to feel alive again, is not the result of a concept, it's the visible imprint of a life touched by renewal. Touch, then, becomes sacred. Not only physical touch, but the touch of presence, attention, and compassion. When you speak to someone with genuine care, you touch them. When you forgive, you touch their soul. When you lay a hand on your own heart in stillness and breathe, you touch yourself back into harmony. These gestures may seem small, but they carry extraordinary power. They remind the body that it is safe, loved, and included in the dance of divine renewal. In many traditions, healing was never seen as a transaction but as an exchange of energy. One heart recognizing another as whole. That recognition itself was the medicine. When someone truly sees you, not as broken but as luminous, your cells begin to listen. They start rearranging themselves around that truth. This is why testimonies of healing are so important. They are echoes of recognition reverberating through the collective body of humanity. Every story of restoration tells us that what is possible for one is possible for all. And yet, renewal often comes disguised as weariness. Before the light returns, the old forms must crumble. You might feel fatigue not because you are failing, but because the body is clearing space for new vitality. The process of becoming light often feels heavy first. This is where trust becomes essential. When you stop interpreting discomfort as punishment and start seeing it as preparation, your relationship with your own body transforms. You realize that healing isn't always about addition. It's often about subtraction. Letting go of what no longer serves, whether it's resentment, habit, or fear, is a sacred act of rejuvenation.